Okay, so as you may or may not be aware, I've been uploading a few short posts about Resident Evil 3 Remake. I've been playing the game again, and I wanted to make a kind of a bigger video talking about the game, and not just the original, but the remake as well, and kind of looking at the two, because although I kind of enjoyed the RE3 Remake for what it is, it definitely isn't anywhere near as good as the original game. And that is somehow a very divisive kind of opinion. Some people think the remake's good, and that's fine. You can enjoy the remake, and that's that. But to me, and I think people who have played this game, this version of the game, a fair few times, there's a lot missing, and there's a story behind that, and I'll explain all that in this video if you're not aware. But we're going to talk about Resident Evil 3. So we'll start with the remake briefly. So off the back of the Resident Evil 2 remake, we obviously got the 3 remake pretty soon after. It was kind of met with mixed response at launch. You know, it was a good remake, it played well, it looked nice, but a lot of what was in RE3 didn't make the cut, and that was kind of disappointing because some people, and I know some of those people, hold RE3 as the best one, right? So having the remake and having it not be up to par with the original is probably quite upsetting. But here's the thing, right? RE3 Remake is good. It cuts out a lot of the downtown Raccoon City part of the game. The park is gone, the Gravedigger boss is gone, the clock tower part is basically just a boss fight in the remake rather than it being like the brief kind of puzzle period where you have to fix the tower. That's gone. Now the thing with the remake's development is, if you didn't know, it was done by like the B team, right? That's what you would call them. It's basically not the main RE team that worked on the 2 remake. It was outsourced, so they didn't have the folks on it. So I'd imagine it was kind of rushed, cut down to a kind of reasonable state to be released as quick as possible, right? And we did get the multiplayer game with it as well, which I think at launch and through that game's life was quite well received, more so than the one that came with Village. But Resident Evil 3 was missing a lot, and it's a shame because Resident Evil 3 has a lot of good in it, and I do want to talk about the game a little bit now. So yeah, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, which is what the original version is called, is obviously a very old game, you can probably tell. PS1, you know, fixed camera, tank controls, the works. Not everyone's going to kind of vibe with that. I think there are people now who just flat out wouldn't play these games because of how they control and the camera and stuff, which is fine. It's not for everybody. I think, you know, I've played so many of these games and so many types of game that have this perspective that it is kind of second nature when you play. Like, it takes a bit of adjustment when you first start, but after that, you're pretty much good to go, right? Obviously, the story for RE3, you play as Jill trying to escape the city before it gets nuked, and while escaping, she's pursued by Nemesis, whose main goal to be there is to eliminate all STARS members involved with the Arclight incident, so that none of it gets out, right? Simple story, very well done. I think Nemesis is a lot better in the original game compared to the remake. Obviously, in both games, he's kind of like the big deal in the game. He appears multiple times, and of course, you have the option to, when he does appear randomly, at least to stay and fight him and get some reward. I think in the original game, it is more parts for one of the Eagle Hawk, like handgun weapons, I think, and a few other things as well. And that is still kind of present in the remake. They still give you the option to kind of fight him and stun him and get some extra items, or to just kind of leg it, and you know, that's intact. But I think, I could be wrong, this could be me, but it's the second half of the remake that suffers with just a straight up boss rush. There's not a lot in between fighting him over and over again at that point. Now, I will say this, there are things that the remake does better, and that's not a gameplay thing. I'm not talking about gameplay, because obviously it's going to play a little bit better because it's a RE engine Resident Evil game. It's going to play very well, but there are certain sections that do exist, and it's more one specifically, there's not many to go off of. I do think the hospital section with Carlos is a lot better in the remake. I think it's a lot more fleshed out. It's still very brief, but I do prefer it in the remake to the original game. It's very short in the original game. It's just a couple of rooms, maybe like 2 puzzles, and then you're back out. And obviously you have the extra exploration with it as well. You can go back in as Jill, and yeah, there's more going on there. But that doesn't make up for the fact that the RPD is kind of gone. You go through it as Carlos, very briefly, just to get to the STARS office, really, and then you're done. Obviously, in the original 3, yes, it's brief, it's not particularly long, but it makes more sense in the original game for Jill to be there instead, but that's just me. Obviously, then you've got the clock tower, which again is something I spoke about earlier. The whole point of the clock tower in the original game is to get it working again, so you can ring the bell and kind of make sure a helicopter knows someone's there, right, to be picked up. Obviously, it doesn't go to plan, because then you fight Nemesis anyway, which you do in the remake, and I will say the original fight is a lot tougher than remake Clock Tower Nemesis. I also don't like that the whole Clock Tower part in the remake is just the boss fight and that's it. And it's a different version of Nemesis. I'm sure you've heard it mentioned, Dog Nemesis is the one you fight at the Clock Tower in remake. Do prefer the original fight, to be honest. But I think for me, the biggest section that just feels so much better in the original compared to the remake is the city. The downtown and the shopping district of the city are just incredible. Like, they're so well done. Obviously, the bulk of it is to fix the train, right? So there's 3 parts you gotta find, 4 technically, but it's oil, a mix for the oil, some cables, and a fuse, right? So that gives you a fair amount of area to search, and there's multiple different areas you can go to, some optional, some you don't really need to go to, but have additional items there as well, which is very good. And that is so condensed in the remake, because off the top of my head, I haven't played the remake in a while. I think all you do is you pretty much start the game properly at the train, right? Which obviously cuts out a bit of the game at the start of the original game. And pretty much the goal in the remake is to go to the substation and turn the power on, which is something you hardly go to in the original game, to be honest. It's a 2-room affair in the original game, as far as I remember, having played it a few days ago. And that's it in the original. Obviously, if you go there in the remake, there's a bit of a somewhat maze-like puzzle with like those spider enemies in there. You're done. Then you go back through the town to the train control station to change the track in which the train is on. Not a thing in the original game, by the way. So I'll give them that. A new puzzle, very cool. Not exactly rocket science, but it is new. Between all of the running between the streets, there is a sewer section and a fight with Nemesis at the top of the construction site, which I will say, I like that fight. I like that fight a lot. But once you're back to the train, straight to the RPD as Carlos, very brief. You come back to Jill, go through a brief sewer bit, up to the clock tower, fight Dog Nemesis, clock tower's over, then hospital with Carlos, which again, I like in the remake. Then it's Jill. You can go through the hospital, get the extra items that are there, because there's some things that Carlos can't open or get to in the hospital, which Jill can. Then you go underground into the kind of the treatment facility and the umbrella lab. Do that kind of somewhat brief finding the cure section part, and then it's 2 back-to-back Nemesis fights, and then the game's over. That may sound like complaining. I really am not trying to dig on the remake. It's fun. It's fun to play. It's a quick experience. You know, you'll be done with it in an afternoon, and I enjoy it. But so much is just not there. And basically, what I'm saying is, the original version is the best way to play the game, and it's more accessible now than ever, basically. So obviously, PC players, I think these are all available through GOG. I think there's a bundle on there to get all 3 original games, which is very good, definitely worth your time. Not too expensive. I think it's £20 to get like all 3. PlayStation users, obviously 1 Director's Cut, 2 and 3 are available through the PS Store. You can obviously buy them and keep them, or if you have the PlayStation Premium service, they're just available to download for free while your membership is active, which is very cool. Fortunately for me, I bought these games on PS3 like way back when, because they're still available on PS3 to buy, and when they got ported to PS5, I just owned them, like I had them. So I've owned these games for a long time, and you know, even then, if you don't have a PS5, maybe you are more of an old school person who plays PS3, PS2, you can get these games on PS3, and you can, if you somehow find the disc, you can use it on the PS2. but they're very accessible, more so than what people would think. But yeah, overall I do want to say, obviously the remake of 3 is a good game. It's passable. It's not terrible, it's not awful. It's just there, and I still play it. I still jump on every now and again, do a run or two. I do quite like the difficulties that game provides. Inferno is ridiculous, and I love that. Anyone who knows me knows I like to play these games in sometimes the most annoying way possible. So Inferno being there is definitely something I quite like. But for anyone who is a fan of the remake, or is a fan of the original, hasn't played it in a while, it's still the best way to play the game. There's a lot more going on, more depth, more that you haven't seen through the remake, and it's a shame that that's the case. And it is kind of similar with Resident Evil 2 as well. There's things that didn't make it to the remake that are in the original, and that's just more so the case with 3. So bottom line, if you haven't played it already, play original Resident Evil 3. You will not be disappointed. I know the controls, the camera, whatever might be a problem, but stick with it. It's a good experience. And yeah, that's pretty much the video. I do want to say, coming to the channel soon, or as soon as possible, I do want to start playing more of the older games. It's something I kind of neglect on the channel every now and again. So I'm talking obviously 1 through 3, Code Veronica, and then obviously a couple of others that are fairly old. I'm thinking maybe talk about Outbreak 4 2, especially now that they're kind of relevant with the new release, with Alyssa being involved. And, there's Survivor and stuff like that I do want to kind of look at some point. So if that's interesting to you, let me know. Remember to subscribe for more Resident Evil content, and I'll catch you all in the next one.